and you are listening to Below the Yellow Line.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Below the Yellow Line podcast. It is not often that one name and one man become revered in a sport. How could just one man transcend a sport and the entire way the sport is perceived and also become perhaps maybe its most famous name in pop culture? Today, I have the man who I personally believe did just that with me in the virtual Below the Yellow Line studio, Mr. Mario Andretti. Sir, how are you doing today?
Wonderful, Samuel. How are you?
I'm doing great. I tell everybody I interview this, but any day I'm interviewing somebody, it's a great day. But especially when I'm interviewing a man that has done it all, somebody that I've always looked up to, and certainly one of the greatest drivers, not just of your generation, but of all time, of all the generations.
Thank you.
I've asked a lot of younger drivers. I've had the chance to interview some drivers in the lower levels of NASCAR, of ARCA, some short track racers. And I feel like everybody's answers vary, but I'm interested from your perspective, growing up and becoming a driver in a different time span. When did your interest in auto racing start, and how did you kind of become Mario Andretti?
Well, my interest started when I was even just a young teenager. When my reasoning started, it was I was still living in Italy, and my twin brother and I we gravitated to the sport because it was so prominent in Italy because of this. I'm talking about the 50s. That's when we were teenagers, and you had a current world champion there with Ferrari, and then you had Maserati, and those brands were competing and competitively in Formula One. And so as kids, obviously, they didn't have television, but they had newsreels, and especially when we go to a movie, they always would have an intermission before, in between the main, the feature, the feature film, just to let the smoke out. And then during the intermission, it would be like a 15, 20-minute intermission. They would have newsreels. And motor racing was prominent on there, and that captivated us. From there on, after Aldo and I attended the 1954 Italian Grand Prix in Monza, I said this always. I said that there was never a plan B for us. The impossible dream sort of set in at the time, and the idea of pursuing this just became our religion. And when we arrived to America, we discovered there was a track right here in Nazareth. And 2 years after arriving, we arrived at age 15. 2 years later, we started building a stock car. It was not a modified, it was a sportsman stock car to race locally. And in 1959, at age 19, that's when we started. And my career began then and went uninterrupted officially through 1994. Still did Le Mans 3 times after that. But nevertheless, I went through almost 900 races throughout my career, and pretty much accomplished my most ambitious endeavors and my ambitious dreams, if you will. It's all about winning. It's all about whatever you are. And for me, it was like going to school. You don't want to repeat the grade, right? So, I started in stock cars, winning there, and then we got into 3/4 midgets in winter. I won there, and I earned myself a ride in a full-size midgets, ARDC, which was prominent midget club here in the East. And from there, the USAC sprint cars, and then the champ cars, and on and on. And then Formula One was always in my scope. And but meanwhile, I did some sports prototype long distance races before that. Obviously I had to get my skills up to some level, in road racing, because it was not as popular. But fortunately, even in USAC and the Champ Car Series, my first year full time in '65, there was one road race as part of the championship, and I won that. So and obviously I was really lobbying for that as well, as you can imagine. But and actually even before that, in 1963, while driving midgets, there was one road race in that series. It was in Lime Rock, Connecticut, and I won that one as well. So as you can see, road racing was in the back of my mind, mainly because of Formula One. And but again, the progression was better than I ever hoped for, quite honestly. So as you can imagine, I'm certainly counting my blessings along the way. And again, when I look back, I'm very proud, very just. I cannot express myself even, to any degree as far as I did. I accomplished maybe more than I deserve, quite honestly. So I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely. And, I think your decision might have been, one of the best in sports history to pursue racing. And obviously, it yielded a great harvest of wins and championships. And you talked a lot about road racing there and how, you kind of felt your specialty was road racing, but you were pretty decent on the ovals and especially in the crown jewel races. Now, this is a NASCAR podcast most of the time. I'd be remiss to not mention your 1967 Daytona 500 win for Holman Moody. The best you can, Mario. Take us kind of through that day and that race, winning the ninth annual Daytona 500.
Well, obviously, that practice started out quite nicely. There was my second experience there at Daytona in a stock car, and my previous one was Smoky Unique in a Chevelle, and I didn't have a great experience there because I had nothing to do with the setups, and anyway, it was a big experiment. But once I got with the Holman and Moody group. It was a good basic setup. The car unloaded quite nicely, quite balanced. And that was good for me because, not having the experience, I knew what felt good and I knew what didn't. But when it felt good, I could go. And so throughout, though, I mean, it was very positive. We had some issues by not getting probably the most powerful engines at the beginning of practice and actually for first single qualifying. But once I was able to lobby a little bit and get into that area, then all of a sudden, the pace came around. And in fact, I was practicing with a new engine before the twin qualifiers. I was just a little bit quicker than what Paul was, with Curtis Turner. So I knew that I had the pace, and it was a matter of just keeping it all together. Because I didn't have the pace qualifying, I opted to qualify with a much lower spoiler, 60-degree spoiler. And most everyone was going with 45 because thinking of the race, and I had to race with what I qualified. So once I got the engine that I needed, the speed was there, but the car was aerodynamically quite loose, so it was very balanced mechanically. So I had to be very careful where I would really ride on a banking when I was in traffic, and where if I was going to be overtaken, I was trying not to be overtaken on the outside and all that. So it was, I had to be very much on my toes throughout the race. But it really worked for me because I had to lead, and in those days it was a premium to be able to follow and to be on a slipstream because of you save a lot of fuel. But I just could not afford that because I was so loose, when I was in the draft. But I was leading fine, and when I had some battles and so on and so forth along the way, I felt pretty confident. I knew where I had to ride. So, again, it was a very, very satisfying race in every way. To be able to pull it off. My teammate was Freddie Lorenzen, as you know. Obviously, I was a great champion there, and was able to, to deal with him. In fact, for the last stop, we come in together. I was leading, and he was behind me, and they let him out of the pits first, and I had to chase him down, and then I couldn't shake him until we came up to some lap cars, and once I was able to shake him, then he couldn't catch up with me, and then I was fairly safe, because if he would have been right in my draft, especially in those days, there's no way that you could lead the last lap and hope to win. So everything worked out for the best, and again, it was an incredibly satisfying win, as you can imagine.
Well, I'd imagine beating a lot of those Ford factory teams at Daytona back in the day, especially beating one with Fearless Freddie behind the wheel, is certainly an accomplishment, no matter who you are. But that Daytona win is a race that I rewatch often, and I watch a lot of old Daytona 500s often. But watching the battle between you and Fred and a lot of other great guys out on that track is
Yeah,
always
Pearson
fun.
and I had quite a go there for many, many laps, and it was fun. It was fun.
Man, David Pearson, when you beat him at Daytona in a car where, I mean, I can't remember which Firecracker 400 it was, must have been 76 or 77, one of those, when he faked out Richard Petty, thought he was out of gas, and then he pulled a why can I not remember? Pulled a slingshot on him going down the front straightaway, and ultimately took the win.
He was a
Um,
great guy.
That's one crown jewel we've talked about, but the other is probably not just the most famous stock car race in the world, but the most famous race in the world, and that being your win in the 1969 Indianapolis 500. By that point, I believe you'd already won an IndyCar championship, but still, relatively, you were kind of new to IndyCar. I think you'd only been there for maybe 5 or 6 years, which maybe now that's a veteran, but maybe not back in the day. What was it like, though, to win Indianapolis, to kiss those bricks, and just to know you were a part of the history and tradition that really only Indianapolis provides?
Well, here again, I think Indy was quite good to me right from the get go. From my rookie year and so forth, and I won two national championships back to back, and then I had two second place finishes before '69. So I was up there, and competitive. I was on pole already twice at Indy, and it basically. Reliability eluded me, of any possibilities. I think Indy in '66, especially, I think I could have won probably my easiest race anywhere. At the start, I lost a cylinder. I was on seventh cylinder at the start, and it took Jim Clark, who won the race the year before, 3 laps to get by me. So as you can see, if I would have had all 8, I would have been in pretty good shape. But nevertheless, come '69, as you said, I already had, 2 championship, 2 second place finishes. And we were on our way pretty much. Even at the start of the year, already had 2 wins before Indy. But we had a problem with the main car, with the main effort there going into the race with a 4-wheel drive Lotus Ford, and actually the car actually showed some weaknesses because my teammates on the other side, well, on the actual team, Lotus team, there were 2 crashes because of suspension failures. And Lord and behold, I was setting some records at practice, and Thursday before qualifying, 2 days before first day of qualifying, my right rear wheel, the hub sheared, and I had a huge crash into turn 4 with fire and everything else. And I was lucky that I had some facial burns, but I was lucky that I didn't have any more injuries. And so we had to pull out, and they withdrew. We had a spare car, but they withdrew the cars because of the failures. And they figured that there's no way they can go 100 miles, especially. In those days, we're running at practice a light load of fuel. So with a full load of fuel, it would have been even worse. Anyway, I had 2 days basically to get the car up to speed, the spare car, which was basically a traditional car, was two-wheel drive, and it was not meant or designed to be raced at Indy, actually. And anyway, I go out and I put on the front row, in the middle of the front row, between AJ Foyt and Bobby Unser. And so that was encouraging. But we had no idea about the reliability. But nevertheless, the car held together, and I led more than half the race, and I won that one. It was satisfying. Why? Because I felt that I'd been denied because of the reliability situations before. 3 years before that, I lost 3 engines where I was totally competitive. So it was a big lift off weight off my shoulders, if you will, just to get that in, because what do I have to do to finish this race again, So, and I felt that with some luck, I was going to win some more, and certainly led my share of laps there at Indy, but only have that one to show for.
I feel like your story at Indy is pretty similar to Dale Earnhardt's in the Daytona 500. You got your win much earlier in your career than Dale did, but I think CBS had a graphic the year that he won it, like every lap that he's led except number 200, and there were only 4 laps maybe that he led aside, or that he didn't lead rather, aside from the final one. And you got your Indy 500, but there was a lot of rough years in there at Indy too. But just winning one of those, and immortality, basically. Nobody's ever going to forget your name. Everybody, they would have known you anyway based on what you did. I think you had a pretty solid resume, more so than most people that have ever driven anything. But Indy is certainly a big one to get, no matter who you are, for sure. Let's see here. You talked about starting on the front row with AJ Foyt, Bobby Unser. Even if you're not a racing fan, you at least know the name AJ Foyt. He also had some success in NASCAR as well. But maybe all three of you didn't know it at the time that you'd become 3 of the greatest drivers ever. But what was it like to share the track with them? Were you friends? Were you rivals? What was the dynamic like between the 3 generational talents of the time?
Well, we were friends, through respect. I was, palling around with Bobby Unser, especially during my sprint car years, throughout, obviously he flew his Bonanza and I used to pay for the fuel. So we would ride together. And so we had, we spent a lot of time together. And AJ was, we were a little more distant there, but I think AJ and my friendship sort of grew after we both came out of the cockpit more than anything. I think I was a thorn on his side at the beginning, when I came on the scene. He was already established as a champion, 5 years my senior, and I was kind of annoying him a little bit. But again, the respect for him was always there, and more than ever. And it's drivers like of that caliber, that make you a better driver, because that you got work to do, to be able. And if you're going to be able to win races, that's who you have to beat. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's what life is all about. And I, maybe I the more that you think about it and so forth, you said how valuable that was, to be able to assess that and take it on as a positive, not a negative.
There's a saying in sports that's, I don't know how long it's been around, but it's always going to be prevalent, and that's that to be the best, you have to beat the best. And every week, I mean, you guys, if you weren't winning, you were at least competitive in practice or qualifying, leading laps, doing something. I mean, you guys were the best, and obviously, you and Bobby Unser have both had family members that could also be in those ranks as well. Um, you've accomplished so much. I mean, we could make this a 7-hour episode just going over every single race win and championship and individual experience. And you even said after you officially retired, you still ran Le Mans. And is there one moment? Is there one accomplishment that do you think sticks out a little further than all the rest? Is there one trophy that's a little shinier than another?
Well, I mean, I have to go back to where it all started. And uh, for me, when I look back, winning the world championship was the original impossible dream. And but along the way, there was so much else to do before you could even start doing that. And it's not that, I mean, a championship, no matter where, whatever you do in whatever aspect, I mean, whatever category, discipline, it's always a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of everything, and a lot of satisfaction in the end when you win it. This one, when you psychologically, when you go back to when the dream all began, that's the one. That's the one that has to be. And to clinch it in Monza, where I saw my very first Grand Prix ever at age 14. And I won that. I won at Monza. I won the Formula One race. I won a 6 hour, 1,000 kilometers in Monza. So you see what I mean? It's that's when you say coming full circle. So yeah, the satisfaction came, but then, I came out of I came out of Formula One at basically age 40, 41, and then I had 18 more IndyCar championship wins and one national championship. So as you can see, I go along the way, and no matter where I stop in my trophy case, I say, "Oh yeah, this was the one. This was the one. This was the one." It's they all bring that satisfaction of the moment. So again, but like I said before, when I look back, is how blessed I really was.
Sir, thank you so much for coming on the show, taking time out of your schedule. We really appreciate it. If I could virtually shake your hand, I would. Unfortunately, computers aren't that advanced yet.
Take care.
But I really appreciate it. Yes, sir. You too.